Sneha, do you want to take it away? Great.
Yes. All right, can everyone see my screen? Yeah, great. Okay, yeah, so welcome to the Overcoming Imposter Syndrome workshop presented by Madelyn in collaboration with Hack Violet. I'm really excited about this workshop today. It really relates to Hack Violet's mission, which if you guys don't know what Hack Violet is, it's another hackathon that takes place at Virginia Tech. We're mostly a female empowerment hackathon. So yeah, this basically just really relates to our mission that I just wanted to quickly talk about here. At Hack Violet, we strive to educate as many people as we can about the obstacles that females, both trans and cis, and other marginalized genders face in computing. And we hope to inspire more unified action through our hackathon. Above all, we believe that people of all genders working together is key to creating an inclusive environment of mutual respect, which of course is what we're all here for right now for this workshop. So yeah, just like a quick recap, we had our hackathon a month ago. We had like 49% first-time hackers, 70% female, more than 50 mentors and judges, including Zane. So thank you for your service. That was really awesome. Yeah. And if you guys want to connect with us, here are some of our social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website. I'm going to like just post these slides in the chat. I'll also give them to Zane so he can post them wherever on the Discord. And yeah, if you guys go to Virginia Tech, we're accepting applications for our Hack Violet board in the March, April time frame. So definitely reach out to me if you're interested. We love to welcome like anyone on our board. Yeah, you can take it away, Madelyn.
Great. Thank you, Sneha. That was a great intro. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, this might take a couple minutes. My Discord is in the way. All right, here we go. Okay. Let's see if I can do this. Share screen. All right. Can I get some kind of thumbs up or other validation that you can see my screen? Sweet, thank you, Zane. All right, everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Madelyn. I'm a software engineer, and I'm going to be leading a workshop about overcoming imposter syndrome. Okay, so I had planned 45 minutes for this workshop. We might go a tad bit over because we started a little bit late. Worst case, we don't do our discussion. But for the plan for these 45 minutes is to spend the first 10 minutes talking about what imposter syndrome is, the next 10 minutes going through some real life examples, and the next 10 minutes about building your toolbox. So going through some strategies of, now that we know what imposter syndrome is and what it might look like what can we do about it? And then if we do have time, which would be great, we can have a discussion at the end in some breakout rooms about how imposter syndrome has impacted each of us. So a quick intro. Again, my name is Madelyn Nelson. I am a platform software engineer at Sprout Social in Chicago. Platform software engineer is a fancy way of saying backend developer. So most of the code I write is in Python and Java, at least for my job. I have a bachelor's degree in computer science from Notre Dame. I graduated in 2017, so not quite a recent grad anymore, but still more on the junior side in terms of software engineering careers. And as I mentioned a little bit, I'm based out of Chicago, Illinois, which is in the US. So a couple quick fun facts about me. I play the trumpet, and I'm involved in Girls Who Code, which is a great nonprofit. Highly recommend if you're looking for ways to contribute more to the Hack Violet mission. Girls Who Code is a great organization, and it's now international, so very cool. Okay, let's jump in. What is imposter syndrome? So according to dictionary.com, good resource, imposter syndrome is defined as anxiety or self-doubt that results from persistently undervaluing one's competence and active role in achieving success, while falsely attributing one's accomplishments to luck or other external forces. There's lots of great definitions of imposter syndrome out there, and I looked at several, and this one really resonated with me, so that's why I picked it. Ooh, I did not mean to go so far ahead. Sorry about that. All right, let's talk about some statistics. Around 25 to 30% of high achievers may suffer from imposter syndrome. So pretty high number. And around 70% of adults may experience imposter syndrome at least once in their lifetime, according to research. These are statistics from Psychology Today. Moral of the story, it is pretty common. All right, let's talk about some causes and effects. According to Medical News Today, here are some causes or like risk factors for imposter syndrome. Starting a new role, so that could mean like starting college or a boot camp program or starting a new job. That can definitely cause some imposter syndrome. Growing up in an environment that highly values achievement and or involves constant praise and criticism. This one was really interesting to me because I think usually, at least in like the bubble of the world that I grew up in, highly valuing achievement was thought of as like a positive attribute of a culture or family. And but apparently here it can lead to imposter syndrome sometimes. And finally, being part of a marginalized population group. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised by that one. Some effects of imposter syndrome, or symptoms as you might call it if we're going with the medical analogy here, is holding yourself back or avoiding seeking higher achievements because of fear of failure, inability to recognize your accomplishments, attributing successes to outside factors or luck. That's a big one, especially for me, and a higher risk of burnout. All right, so quick note here. This is a big theme at Girls Who Code, and I think in like the feminist movement in general, but especially in the context of imposter syndrome. If someone finds himself really trying to be perfect or like being a perfectionist, that can actually be a really big part of imposter syndrome. And a theme that I want to emphasize is that we should, if possible, really try to not let perfectionism run our lives and work on channeling bravery instead. So kind of an overarching theme of this, something to keep in mind before we dive in to more about imposter syndrome. All right, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. I have a lot of things open right now, but I don't think there's anything in there. So I am going to continue. Let's talk about some real life examples of imposter syndrome. Okay, so I have two examples here, and they're both examples of imposter syndrome from my life. So they're, my own examples. And I'm going to just tell you as if it was a story. So situation number one, this is a good question. Wow, Kelsey really gets it. I wish I understood computer science as well as Kelsey. Okay, so, oh gosh, how do I start this? So I majored in computer science, and the computer science program I was in at my school was pretty small at the time. We had about like 100 students total, and that was both computer science and computer engineering. So I think in the years following, it's actually grown a ton, but at the time it was like relatively small. And I started computer science not really having any idea what it was. So I went into college thinking, oh, I like math and I like art. Those are both things that I like, I'm pretty good at. I think maybe that means I should be an architect. That's what I hear, math and art. And I eventually, as a freshman, stumbled into a intro to engineering course that kind of gave you a little sample of different subsets of engineering, including computer science. And during that unit that we were basically forced to try programming, I was like, whoa, this is not at all what I expected it to be, like at all. I thought computer science was a place where really awkward introverts sat alone and memorized ones and zeros, and they had to be geniuses, and they all hacked into the NSA, you know, just all of the stereotypes you could think of. I had no reason at that point in my life to think that those weren't true because I didn't know any programmers, and none of the teachers in my high school really had a sense for what computer science was either. So I was so shocked to find in college that computer science is actually, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here a little bit because you all are studying that probably, but computer science is actually really creative. It's a lot about problem solving. It's a little puzzles, and you get to make something really tangible. And you can be an extrovert. You can be great at communication, and that will absolutely contribute to your success in the computer science field. So anyway, so in that class, I was like, this is pretty great. I should study this. I hear there's some great high paying jobs doing this, and I would love to work at a place like Google, right? That'd be pretty sweet. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be brave. I'm going to major in this, even though haven't really ever done it before. So as a sophomore at my school, you start your like major classes as a sophomore. So as a sophomore, I found myself in our like intro to computing class, you could call it. We called it fundamentals of computing, but different schools call it different things. And I remember sitting in the back. So at the time we were in like a lecture hall that was pretty big. It fit all 100 of us. And we had, I don't know what you call them, but like a tiered seating system where, you know what I'm talking about? So everyone can see the professor. Okay. So I remember being in that room and being like, uh-oh, everyone here knows what they're doing. Everyone here has done programming before. They're all geniuses, right? And here I am, never having had done this before, and really not having any, like the professor's saying all these things like memory and CPU and for loops. And I'd never heard any of those concepts before, like literally never heard them. And so what I did, I sat in literally the back corner, like on the top tier. And I was like, uh-oh, if I kind of like crouch down a little bit, maybe the professor won't see me. Maybe they won't call on me and expect me to know what I'm talking about, because all of this is brand new. So luckily I actually made a couple friends in the back row who also had a lot of imposter syndrome. They had the same idea I did. And we kind of bonded over that, but that was where I started. And while I was sitting in the back, I distinctly remember Kelsey, my friend, also a computer science student, the same year as me, would kind of sit in the middle row, and she always seemed like she had everything together, like in terms of computer science knowledge and like classes she'd taken and things. So Kelsey and I knew each other through some like extracurricular activities we were involved in. And so we, over the 3 years of our computer science program, would like occasionally do projects together, or like we would have some homework assignments where you could pair up with a buddy and we would work together. And I remember again thinking, wow, Kelsey, whenever we learn a new concept, Kelsey just like gets it, right? We talk about dictionaries for the first time. Kelsey's like, oh yeah, you know, hash map, blah, blah, blah. And here I am like, I want to use an array all the time for everything, not into this hashing nonsense, right? So it always felt to me like my perspective was Kelsey gets this stuff and is awesome, such a good programmer. Kelsey's going to go work at Google, and I don't know what I'm going to do because I'm clearly not capable of that. So fast forward till about the end of our undergrad year. So again, another theme, my computer science program was pretty small. So at the end of our 4 years, I guess it was 3 years in the program, but the students got to know each other pretty well. At that point, we had taken basically all of our core classes together. We had all worked on projects with each other, and because it was a small program, we basically got really comfortable with each other. And because of that, I was able to kind of build confidence and really like, I don't know, slowly start to accept that I actually am a good programmer. Thank you very much. And that this is great and I will succeed. So anyway, I started building up this confidence, and I eventually mustered up the courage to kind of I don't want to say praise, what's the word? Affirm one of my good friends, Kelsey, and say like, hey, Kelsey, you are a great programmer, just in case you didn't know, great programmer. You're going to work at Google. This is awesome. You always learn these concepts really well. I just wish I'm a little jealous because I wish I could, pick up on them as fast as you do. And when I was telling this to her, Kelsey was like, what? Are you kidding? And I was like, no, you're great. Like, what are you talking about? For years, you get this right away. You're great at this. And Kelsey was like so shocked. And she was like, what are you talking about? I'm not good at this. Like, I'm not a great programmer. I never get these concepts. You get these concepts. Like, you pick up on them fast. I thought you were a great programmer. And she basically proceeded to like repeat back to me what I had been thinking about her being a great programmer, right? For years. And after we did that, we were both like, what? Like, how is it that we were in the same class, like literally on the same projects for years together and in the same like extracurricular activities? We both thought that each other was great, a great programmer, right? Like very skilled, gonna succeed. But neither of us, and both of us were separately really struggling with imposter syndrome, but we didn't tell each other that. And so we were just like literally sitting next to each other for years, silently struggling and not talking about it. So it's a whole thing. Just to give you a nice bow on the story, I am a successful software engineer at a great tech company. So life is good. Kelsey is also a software engineer at a great tech company. So yay, life is good. All right. Moral of the story. 1, it's totally okay to have imposter syndrome. And I will encourage you to talk about it. You're not the only one that feels this way, I promise. And I like the stats we looked at in the beginning, it's a very, very common like feeling to have or mindset to have. So another aspect of the moral of the story, don't wait 3 years like I did to tell your buddy that you have imposter syndrome. I'm not saying you have to, go around and tell the entire world. Like, privacy is a good thing too. But if there's a friend that you trust that's also a developer, especially, there's nothing, it's good to be vulnerable sometimes. And if I had opened up to Kelsey, or if Kelsey had opened up to me years before, we could have had a support system through that whole process, right? Through all of our classes, all of our projects, and both of us just decided not to. So you should open up if you're comfortable doing that. Don't wait 3 years like I did. Doesn't need to be like today, but not years. Great. Okay, I'm gonna have a little coffee. I'm gonna do a time check. What time is it? I am just rambling about my life. Okay, I can't see what time it is. Oh, I have my phone. It's 11:31. Okay, so we're about 15 minutes in. This is good. Okay, I'll try to make this story a little bit shorter. So also in college, I had the mindset of I could never be a software engineer at Google. So I'm going to apply to this other role that looks easier. Okay, so when I was a senior in college and I, kind of looked around, I was like, I should probably apply to jobs. I should probably find a place I can work after graduating. And I remember at the time thinking that like my absolute dream job, perfect job ever, would be being a software engineer at Google. Just as a little disclaimer, that is no longer my goal. I have, over the past like 3.5 years since graduating, really reflected and like learned a lot about how these companies work. And my goal has like evolved over time. So I'm not saying that that is like currently my aspiration. It's okay if it's yours, it's all good. But at the time of this story, for the context, I really wanted to be a software engineer at Google. I was like, if I'm a software engineer there, everyone is going to think I'm the coolest developer and we're all going to be friends and I'm going to make some great stuff and it's just going to be great. So I had this in mind, and I remember being in my dorm room, sitting on my futon, and I was like, okay, I should take this afternoon, apply to a bunch of jobs. And when it came to applying to Google, I really hesitated. I was like, I know that I want to work here. I know it would be my dream job, but somehow in my mind, I could not wrap my head around how I could possibly be qualified for that. So even though I had very like concrete, tangible accomplishments, right? Like winning a databases competition, for example, going to these hackathons, doing really well, like all these really cool things, I somehow was like, oh, I could never be a software engineer at Google. So what I did was I went to their careers page, which is, it probably still is, but at the time it was really long. There are lots of open roles that were computer science related. And I like really dug through it. And I found a recent grad role that was like half computer science, half, I don't even know, half on the business side, I guess you could say. And it was not the role that I wanted at all. But I thought that if I apply to this other role instead, maybe I can get away with what I thought at the time was like a lack of programming skills or like a lack of intelligence or whatever you want to call it. So I applied to it. I did not get it, which is fine. It is what it is. But the moral here, I think this is enough for the moral of the story. So I didn't even apply. I did not apply for the role that I was qualified for, that I really, really, really wanted. Like I knew I wanted this. And then I talked myself out of even giving myself a chance to do it. So moral of the story, downplaying your accomplishments can lead to missed opportunities. Again, I'm very glad that my life worked out and I am a software engineer, like life is good, but I literally didn't even give myself the opportunity to be a software engineer at Google because I didn't want to be in, in an interview room and them ask me about like B trees or something. I was like, I don't know. I don't remember how to do B trees or like whatever it is. So second moral, you should always apply, literally, like write this down. You should always apply to jobs or scholarships, awards, whatever it is. You should always apply, even if you think there's zero chance. It's kind of a feminist principle in itself because women or like underrepresented genders tend to only apply to roles that they think they are 100% qualified for. And whereas men, I don't know the exact statistic, but they'll apply if they think they only meet a certain percentage of the accomplishments. Friendly reminder, apply to everything that you're interested in. The worst case is you get rejected, which is fine. You can handle it. Life is good. All right. Cool. That was fun. So let's see. Do I have any? Oh, sorry, team. I was just looking for my chat. I didn't mean to stop. Is there anything in the chat I should attend to, or can I just?
Yeah, I don't believe so. If there's anything substantial in the chat, I can let you know.
Sweet. Thank you, Zane. That's really helpful. Okay, fun random thing. I went to the Computer History Museum and got this mug. Great mug, great museum. If you're in California, you should check it out. All right. So the next section of this, oh, it's 11:36. Okay. Is to build our toolbox. So now that we know a little bit about what imposter syndrome is, and then you have some concrete examples from my life, right, of how it has manifested itself in decisions I've made. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can, if you're, in a similar situation or if someone is, what are some strategies you can use to not let imposter syndrome like dictate your decisions in your life. All right, this is a good time for a small disclaimer. Overcoming imposter syndrome is a journey. This is not meant to be a, prescriptive verbatim list of steps to follow and then poof, your imposter syndrome's gone. No, I have been working on like reducing my imposter syndrome for years, and it's still something that comes up that I struggle with. I've made a lot of progress and I'm very proud of that. But I want to make sure everyone's expectations are set beforehand. These are just some strategies you could try that I've tried that have worked pretty well for me. But it's not, it's not immediately going to make your imposter syndrome go away. It's okay. It's a process. It takes time. Just thought I would throw that out there before we get into it. All right. So there are 5 strategies. I will do a quick review slide at the end, just in case you're interested in writing them down. Strategy number 1 is to talk about it. Talking about your experiences brings a sense of validation and solidarity. So think back to my story about imposter syndrome with Kelsey. If we had talked about it, we would have had that support system and that kind of sense of validation, but we didn't talk about it. So some ideas for what this might look like in your life is you could find an accountability buddy to set regular check-in times to chat, especially about imposter syndrome or a different topic if you want. So I actually do this with one of my coworkers. We set aside a regular time to talk about imposter syndrome at work, and it's been really great because I always know that I can tell her what's really going on. A second idea is to attend networking events for underrepresented genders in tech. So this particular workshop is really geared toward underrepresented genders in tech, but really that doesn't have to be the kind of networking event you go to. Obviously, there's lots of different networking events for different groups in tech, and you can find one that you identify with that will hopefully bring a sense of validation and solidarity, because as I'm sure you all know, in tech, there is not an equal breakdown of like demographics, and it can be hard on like a team or in class or in a job that you're working in. You might be the only underrepresented gender. You might be the only one of a certain race. And so it can get a little exhausting after a while. So having that kind of community outside of your job, outside of class, of people you can go to and talk to can be really helpful. All right, strategy number 2, list your strengths. So this is a very concrete one. Write a list of your strengths and keep them somewhere where you'll read it every day. So here are some implementation ideas for this. You could keep a browser tab open to a Google Doc listing your strengths at the top. I actually do this one. It's one of my favorite strategies. And I have a nice little screenshot in the bottom right of a snippet of my strengths. It is not an exhaustive list, but I took 15 minutes one day. I jotted down some strengths that I have that I think are really great. And I keep that tab open in my, browser window. And whenever I'm, okay, I don't know if everyone does this, but at any given point, I probably have 100 browser tabs open, right? In different windows, like they're organized, okay? I can see the fav icon, right? Like it's organized, but the problem, and then I'll a few times a day at least be like, oh no, I have too many tabs. And then I'll go through and I'll start closing them, right? It's a whole thing. So once I'm closing my tabs and I get to the tab that has my strengths in it, I'm always like, oh yeah, let's look at my strengths. And then I just read them real quick and I'm like, I'm pretty great. Look at my strengths. I did that today or whatever it is. And then I just continued closing my browser tabs, right? I keep this one open just as a reminder, but that's a way for me to get like even multiple times a day, a little reminder of what those strengths are. So one of my good friends does something really similar, but not with a browser tab. They use physical sticky notes. They like writing on a sticky note. I guess some people are more into that, which is fine. And then they keep that by their desk where they can see it multiple times a day. So special note to keep in mind, this list is not strengths and weaknesses. This isn't like a self-reflection job evaluation situation where you need to list both. There is a time and place to do that, but the purpose of this list is to provide you some like affirmation and to build your confidence. And as someone who has imposter syndrome, you do not need any extra reminders of what your weaknesses are. We all have them. It's fine. You don't need to dwell on them all the time every day. So this list only has strengths in them. Great. All right. Strategy number 3, forgive yourself. So in summary, don't beat yourself up over mistakes or growth areas. You're only human. So this one is, I think, pretty common, or like a lot of people really live by this motto, which is great, or try to. I know the first time this strategy really was told to me or suggested to me was from a soccer coach in middle school. Our soccer team had a lot of fun, but we lost a lot of games. And our coach would tell us after, if it was a particularly rough game, he would tell us that we only have 30 minutes to feel sad about that game or feel angry about that game. And then after those 30 minutes, we move on and we're ready for the next game. And that was a really helpful thing for me, especially at the time, to have that guidance, but it applies to lots of other areas of life too. So especially if you fall into that bucket of a perfectionist, like I have in the past, and I'm working on not being a perfectionist anymore, being able to forgive yourself when you do have the impression of like, oh, I made a mistake, is like a really, really, really great skill. So implementation ideas, question your thoughts. Does it make sense that you're a fraud given everything you know? So if you're in a situation and you're thinking to yourself, like my story about not applying to Google, if I'm like, oh, I could never be a software engineer, forget about all the accomplishments I have, forget about my GPA at this great school, right? Like, is it logical? Like, take a moment to pause and really think through, like, I know I feel like a fraud, but is, the white man in my class next to me, is he feel like a fraud when we have the same accomplishments? And just kind of, as one of my coworkers says, channel your inner white man and make that the action that you go by. I know sorry, I'm going by so many stereotypes here. So the second bullet point here is, if you do make a mistake, which is totally okay, set a strict time limit for reflecting on it. So like maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30, you have a lot of time. And after that time is up, forgive yourself and just move on. That's it. You're done. You don't need to dwell on it forever and beat yourself up. It's really okay. Life is too short to dwell on it. I know it's easier said than done. I'm telling you these strategies, not that I've mastered them. I have not. I'm still working on them, but yeah, I think they could be really helpful. All right, strategy number 4, accept praise. So this is a good one. Imagine you are in a situation where someone comes to you and says, wow, you did a great job putting this event together. It was a huge success, right? Someone's coming to you after you did something and offering you some praise. There are some examples of imposter syndrome responses on the left, and then more like healthy confidence responses on the right. So imagine situation, right? Wow, you did such a great job. This was awesome, huge success. Oh no, not really. I messed up in these areas, right? Or like the attendance was low, or I showed up late, or whatever it is, right? That is an example of dismissing the praise that someone's giving you. You should not respond that way. And again, I am working on this myself. I haven't mastered it. All right, let's try another example. Oh my gosh, you did such a great job. What a great event, huge success. Oh, I just got lucky. I didn't actually plan this, right? Like the stars aligned for me. It's a miracle. So another example, you're redirecting the praise and you're dismissing it. Last one. Wow, you did such a great job. The event was a success. Oh no, it was nothing. It was not much work, not a big deal. If you tend to go with the last bullet point there, that's an example of you basically saying like, oh, this accomplishment that you're just throwing the praise away. You're just saying, nope, not a thing. So if you find yourself tending to give responses like you see on the left, try to replace them, or you can practice even giving responses that are on the right. So let's try some of these examples. Wow, you did such a great job. It was so successful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's it. You don't have to qualify it. You can just say, thank you, right? I appreciate it. If you're worried about not being seen as humble, you can say, I appreciate it. That's it. Another example, thank you. I worked really hard on it. Because you did work really hard on it. You shouldn't say, oh, it was nothing. Oh, it was lucky. You worked really hard. You spent a lot of hours on this hypothetical event. You should own that praise because you deserve it. And then finally, thank you. We had a great turnout. So I was a little hesitant if I should put this example on here because it is kind of redirecting the praise a little bit towards some metric that you achieved, but it also is a metric that you achieved. So I guess that's okay. Fun little note here. One thing that I like to do if I find myself with some kind of in a situation where someone's praising me for something I did, and then I feel like, uh-oh, I'm about to say something on the left. How am I going to say something on the right? I do a fun little like hair flip. Not everyone has to do this, right? We all have our own things and that's fine. But if someone says like, wow, you did such a great workshop, I'll be like, oh, thanks. And it's just kind of silly, right? Like no one thinks I'm bragging. It's fine. It's totally fine. But that's what I do. Like I literally do a physical hair flip and everyone thinks it's funny. And then the moment of my wanting to dismiss the praise is already handled. So that's just a fun little thing. You don't have to do a hair flip. There's other options, but find something that works for you. All right. The last strategy of our 5 is to own your accomplishments. So recognize and be proud of your accomplishments. Don't downplay them. Some ideas for implementing this are if you accomplish something really awesome, you can share a recap of it on LinkedIn. I know that a lot of people don't really enjoy interacting with others on LinkedIn, and that is perfectly okay. We all have different styles. You don't have to do this, but if you are feeling like, oh, maybe this is a way I can build my network or like meet some other cool software engineers out there, this is a really good way to kind of say like, hey, look, world, I did this thing and I'm really happy that it went so well. Yeah. Another example of something you could do is to keep an updated list of your accomplishments in a Google Doc. It could even be the same Google Doc as your strengths if you want to conserve Google Docs, right? But this is a really great way to say, it doesn't take very long. Say you do really well on an assignment or you get an interview at a really cool company, whatever it is, you can put little bullet points you add a little bullet point to your Google Doc. And then if there's ever a time when you are feeling particularly like imposter syndrome is taking over your thoughts, you can go to that Google Doc really quickly and say, oh, wait, no, I am pretty cool. Look at these examples of all the cool stuff I've done. So it's another thing you could try. Ooh. All right, let's review. This is, again, not an exhaustive list. These are some strategies that I've tried that I personally recommend, but the internet is full of other examples too, and other like scholarly articles of people who are in psychology who study imposter syndrome, unlike me, who's just someone who's experienced it and telling you my story. So if you want more, if these aren't resonating with you, that's okay. You can always look up other ones. So to review, number 1, talk about it. Remember the Kelsey example. Number 2, list your strengths. You get a Google Doc tab where you find it and say, oh, I'm pretty great. Number 3, forgive yourself. So time box those issues that you might experience. Number 4, accept praise. So hair flip, right? And number 5, own your accomplishments. If you do something great, you deserve praise and you deserve to enjoy it. All right, so let's see. It is 11:52 in my time zone, so that leaves us 8 minutes. I guess it's not a ton of time. So before we do that, I would like to point out that I love, you probably picked up on this, I'm definitely an extrovert. I love talking through stories and giving advice. So if you want to connect outside of the hackathon, I'm happy to do that. My LinkedIn and my Twitter actually have a handle of Madelyn Codes, Madelyn with a Y. So I'd love to connect there. Feel free to send me a DM. I give students advice all the time. So that sounds good. And then if you wanted a more direct way to like ask anything, this is my work email, MadelynNelson@sproutsocial.com. So friendly piece of advice. Make sure you connect with the other people that you meet at this hackathon. That can be people that you work with, like other hackers, sponsors, mentors, or workshop leaders. I went to a couple hackathons as a student and I'm still connected with the people that I met at those hackathons. And it's so cool to see the tech companies they're working in and different parts of the country. So this is a great opportunity to build your network. So make sure you do that. Okay, cool. So I don't know if we want to record this part, Zane, but I do have a few discussion questions that we could potentially talk about if anyone's interested in that.